Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm sharing a new short story I wrote called Friendship Bracelets. But before I do, I actually first just want to talk a little about some shows I've currently been watching and a few upcoming movies I'm excited to see. And this may be a new segment that I do from time to time, just to kind of touch upon other shows and movies I've been enjoying, and to give my recommendations. And also because, to be honest, I'm just such an impatient person. So with these movies in particular, I'm excited for them to finally be released, to talk about them. So I figure I could at least touch upon a few of these topics for now, and then eventually, when they're released, discuss them on the podcast. And one show I've currently been watching for the first time is called Schitt's Creek. If you haven't heard of it, it's a show created by Eugene Levy and his son Daniel Levy, and they actually play father and son on the show as well. And it's about this rich family who loses all their money, and they basically have to rebuild their lives in this town called Schitt's Creek. And it's such an easy show to binge watch. We're already almost all caught up with 5 seasons, and it has been renewed for a 6th and final season that will be airing next year in 2020. And the characters are just, they're so great, and they go through changes and growth throughout the show, which is always satisfying to see in television. And it's just so hilarious. I've laughed out loud so many times while watching it. But also what I love about it is that there are many heartfelt moments here and there. I've teared up a couple times, to be honest, too, watching it. It's just so well written. It's just a really, really great show. I highly recommend it. So when that series ends next year, I'll definitely be discussing it. I'm looking forward to that. And then another show I've currently been watching on a weekly basis, because it's an episode released every week. It's an anime, and it's my all-time favorite anime. I loved it so much in middle school. My sister as well. And when I found out it was being rebooted, I was so amazed and excited. And that is Fruits Basket. Such an incredible series. So it's based on the manga series by Natsuki Takaya. And the original anime series is only 26 episodes long. And unfortunately it was never finished. But now they have a whole new studio. In Japan, it's a whole new voice cast. For the English dub, which is what I always watched when I was younger, and watching it now, I love it. They got a lot of the main actors back, which makes me so happy. And it's so visually stunning. It's absolutely gorgeous animation, and the art style, I absolutely love it. So far, it's great. It's just been such an enjoyable watch to go back and revisit this story, these characters, and staying true to the source material. And it's heartfelt and heart-wrenching, and it's such a deep, profound, wonderful series that touches on such heavy themes. And it's lovely, and it's romantic, and I love it so much, and I'm so excited to discuss it. I was planning on actually discussing it a bit earlier after finding out about this new series, but then I figured, let me hold off at least until the first season is done, because at the time recording this now, 7 episodes have aired. So I figured, let me at least wait for the first season, maybe discuss that, then wait for the second season. But my sister and I have been watching it every week. We absolutely love it. So for now, I'll just say it's great. I highly recommend it. I love Fruits Basket, and I love Kiyosoma. That's all I'll say for now. My sister and I, we love him. Okay, and so for movies now, the biggest movie I'm super excited about is Toy Story 4. That will be released on June 21st, first day of summer, in fact. And I remember when it was first announced, I was skeptical because Toy Story 3 ended absolutely perfectly. Just that arc with Andy. And Toy Story 3, for me, is still my all-time favorite of the Toy Story franchise. That said, I'm optimistic that Toy Story 4 will be everything we wanted and more. Pixar knows how to create those heartstring-tugging storylines with these memorable characters that are so near and dear to people of all ages. So I'm confident it's going to be a profound and moving and lovely movie, as each Toy Story film has been. I have faith in Pixar, and I will definitely be discussing that when that is released. And 2 other movies I'm super unbelievably excited about are, in fact, TV movies. And if you've listened to several episodes of my podcast, you probably already know by now that I'm a huge Nickelodeon nerd, specifically the 90s to early 2000s Nickelodeon. And so you may already know where I'm going with this, if you love Nickelodeon like I do, but the Rocko's Modern Life and Invader Zim TV movies finally have release dates. They will be airing on Netflix this summer. And apparently it's going to be late summer, so I'm thinking that maybe end of August. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's going to be August 30th. But if it's released sooner, even better. But with the Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling TV movie in particular, it was supposed to air on Nickelodeon last year in 2018, but since Nickelodeon wasn't happy with the ratings with Hey Arnold the Jungle Movie, they basically shelved it. And then also there were executive changes and president changes in Nickelodeon, so that held it back. But I'm glad it's going to be airing on Netflix. That's what they probably should have done with Hey Arnold the Jungle Movie too, because that's, let's be honest, it's gearing towards the fans that grew up and absolutely loved all of these series. So I'm really excited for those. To be honest, I'm more excited for Invader Zim every time, because I love that. I'm so eager to talk about that series again. I'm so excited for that. But I know for a fact, I just know that the Rocko's Modern Life one is going to be amazing, and both will be. But I'm so excited to finally watch them. So Static Cling and Invader Zim Enter the Florpus, they'll be finally released in summer. I'm so excited to see them. And for Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling, I should be having a guest on to discuss that with me. We'll have to double check on that once an actual release date is confirmed. But summer 2019, those 2 movies, I'm super duper excited. I cannot wait. I know they're both going to be amazing. I know the cast and crew worked so hard on each of the respective movies, so I'm so excited for that. Alright, so enough geeking out and fangirling for now. Let's dive into my new short story I wrote. So, without further ado, it's story time. It wasn't until Kayla had reached into the cooler her mom had packed for their beach trip and went to hand Macy an ice-cold can of soda that she noticed her wrist was bare. "Kay, your bracelet's gone." Kayla froze and turned her wrist toward herself, as if in doing so it would somehow reappear. But then she shrugged and handed her the soda. "It must have fallen off in the ocean," she said in a casual air that made Macy frown, one that only deepened when Kayla added, "We got those bracelets so long ago I sort of forgot it was there anyway." Kayla grabbed a soda for herself and leaned back in her beach chair beside her mom, who sat with a book while Kayla's little brother sat by her feet, sloppily scraping up the wet sand into a pile with his shovel. It all felt so ordinary and forgetful, not at all momentous as the woman who'd first told them about the bracelets made them seem. They were both 8 at the time when Macy's mom had taken her and Kayla out shopping for the day, and while her mom was busy trying on dress pants, they found themselves wandering idly through the thrift store that smelled of lavender and mothballs. After passing by rows and rows of hand-woven scarves, recycled paper bookmarks, and homemade soaps, they finally came across the simple yet vibrant bracelets that brought their wandering tracks to a halt. "Look how pretty," Kayla had said in admiration. She picked up one in particular, a a beige threaded bracelet with colorful beads. "I see you girls found the friendship bracelets," the store owner said as she approached them. Everything about her flowed, from her dark, wavy hair to her peacock-colored dress. "You know how they work, don't you?" Both girls shook their heads, and the woman plucked another bracelet and held it up to demonstrate. "You tie the bracelet around each other's wrist, and as you do, you make a wish. Then you leave the bracelet on until it falls off, and when it does, your wish will come true." The two girls exchanged thrilled looks, eyes lit up with wonder at the prospect of such a thing, that something as simple as a bracelet could possess such magic. And now here they were, and maybe it was from still clinging on to the wonder, despite the past year in which gossip and boys were becoming far more appealing than magic and make-believe. Regardless, Macy asked, "What did you wish for?" Kayla peered at Macy through her sunglasses, which were a bit too big for her face, and made her wonder if she'd borrowed them from her mom in the spirit of being more grown up. "I honestly don't even remember," Kayla said. She took out her phone from her beach bag and reclined in her chair, evidently over the topic, as her interest promptly moved to the latest happenings on Snapchat. Macy dropped her gaze to her own bracelet, the wet band sticking to her arm. The knot Kayla had tied to secure the bracelet in place hadn't budged in the past year, and each of the beads still sat in a row, perfectly aligned. Truthfully, Macy herself hadn't given much thought to the bracelets either over the last year. The initial appeal of showing them off to their classmates had worn off after a day, and the similar marveled reactions of hearing about their alleged mystical wish-granting powers were a mere blink in comparison. Yet now she couldn't help wondering if this were somehow her own doing. Maybe she should have made the knot on Kayla's bracelet tighter. Maybe the two of them should have written their wishes down so they wouldn't forget. Macy ran her thumb over the small beads, each one a different color. Despite their smoothness, the only thing she could focus on in that moment was her chipped pink nail polish and how silly it looked now. Self-conscious, she let go and busied herself by opening her can of soda and taking a refreshing sip. She looked out at the ocean, at the kids splashing and squealing in delight when the waves crashed over them. Kayla's brother Frankie had crushed the sand with his shovel, and his arms were covered in sand now, but he was clearly having too much fun to care. Macy felt compelled to sit by him and pick up the spare shovel to help him dig, but instead she merely sat back in her chair and pretended to sunbathe while Kayla giggled at something on her phone. That night, as Macy got ready for bed, she found her gaze drifting to her wrist once more. The bracelet felt itchy all of a sudden, encumbering and bothersome, like it didn't belong anymore. How long would it be before her bracelet actually fell off? She wasn't sure she wanted to wait much longer now that Kayla's was off. She considered trying to loosen the knot, but attempting to twist it free with only one hand proved difficult, and she only grew impatient. Finally, she grabbed a pair of scissors from her desk. She intended for it to be a small snip, to fray the bands so that the string would loosen and fall off faster of its own accord. Instead, she ended up cutting off the bracelet completely. It fell off easily and the beads clattered dully against the desk. As she returned the scissors and picked up the bracelet, she found she wasn't filled with regret or sadness or even relief. She was free of it now. In fact, she didn't feel anything at all, except for thinking about how maybe she'd just robbed herself of the excitement of witnessing the bracelet fall off on its own. However, if Kayla's indifferent reaction were any indication, she really didn't miss anything exciting at all. Maybe she was placing too much significance on something that was ultimately meaningless. Maybe it really was all hyped up in her head and the bracelets weren't magic in the first place. All she knew was, as she placed the cut-up band into her drawer, that she'd never know for sure now. She thought when she saw Kayla again and showed her that her bracelet was gone too, it would have made her feel better to know that they were on the same page, but all Kayla did was smirk a bit. "That's nice, Mace." The look returned when Kayla's 10th birthday arrived, and she opened Macy's gift of a sterling silver bracelet with a heart pendant, on which was inscribed the words, "Friends Forever." Kayla had a restrained smile on her face, one reserved from masking disappointment for the sake of being polite. A smattering of snickers from the other girls at the party only sealed how foolish Macy felt in that moment. Thankfully, Kayla saved her the mortification of drawing any further attention to it, and only finally addressed how she felt long after the party had ended. "It's just, matching bracelets are kind of for babies now, you know?" Macy's disappointment had solidified into embarrassment, and she simply gave a meek nod and tugged at her long sleeve to hide her new bracelet. Thus, the rift between them had formed, a crack in their friendship that deepened over the years. As Kayla permanently moved on from their world of playdates and dress-up, and branched out into things like student council and dance classes. By middle school, she was even dating one of the boys in their class. And the time when Macy would have been the first to hear all about Kayla's first kiss had long since faded away, as all those secrets went to her dance friends now. The girls who wore cute clothes and texted all the time in class and swapped snarky comments. By high school, it was as if their friendship had been a long, forgotten chapter in each of their lives. When Macy finally did have her first kiss with the far less popular but nonetheless sweet boy in their grade, she told the story to her fellow artsy friends she'd come to appreciate and cherish. She was no longer a part of Kayla's social circle, and when they did cross paths, they were mere acquaintances with just a few exchanged pleasantries and nothing more. She never would have predicted long after high school and even college that she'd one day be offering Kayla a place to stay after a rough breakup and having nowhere else to go. Evidently, no one in Kayla's supposedly tight-knit circle of friends could summon up the compassion to be there for her even in this time of need. And perhaps it was fate for her first best friend to lose everything she thought was most important to her, as it made her realize she'd pushed away the one girl who'd valued their friendship most of all. She discovered it in the form of that bracelet, not the sterling silver, but the original woven one they'd shared years ago. It had been so long, Macy herself had been surprised when Kayla found it in her drawer. She smiled, warm with sentimentality. Kayla then reached for her overnight bag, which she'd filled haphazardly with as many of her must-need personal belongings as she could. Macy heard it first before she saw it, the clinking of a sterling silver charm, and when Kayla withdrew the very bracelet she'd given her years ago, her smile only grew. She gestured to the pendant with those simple, meaningful words, "Friends forever," and Kayla returned the smile as she said, "Looks like my wish came true." Alright, that was friendship bracelets. And I remember I've had friendship bracelets. I also had friendship necklaces, that kind of cute stuff. I remember too, my friend and I had friendship anklets. So it was like that, you tie it around your ankle and then when it falls off, your wish comes true. And it was one of those things where you forget you have it on, and then when it comes off, it's like, oh, what did I don't even remember, it was so long ago. So it's one of those things that seems exciting at first, but then it's just, you don't really give it much thought after that. But the meaning behind it is sweet, that it's a reminder of you and your best friend, and it's cute. I think with the friendship necklace, with my friend and I, like hers said best, mine said friends, if I'm not mistaken. And then I had one with beads. And that stuff is cute. But also with this story, the thing I was driving at was how sometimes with friends, one of them kind of grows up faster than the other. So that was the case here with these two friends. But then in the end, their friendship withstood the test of time. So they became friends again. Because you know how friends drift apart, but that's how it is. In times of need, they were able to become friends again. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at StorytellSaga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, our babies will be smart and beautiful, not to mention imaginary. I will be discussing the Big Bang Theory. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.